Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe met with federal officials today over China's tariffs on some Canadian goods. And Moe says he's ready to go to China himself to fight for market access. China imposed a nearly 76% tariff on Canadian canola seed last week. That's on top of the 100% duties already applied to canola oil and meal since March. CBC's Alexander Silberman is on this story and joins us now with more. So, Alexander, what did we learn about the federal government's plan to respond to the tariffs?
Well, Hillary, we learned that the federal government has concrete plans to engage with China in the coming days to try and start to work towards a resolution and getting these tariffs lifted. We heard the parliamentary secretary to the Prime Minister say that there is a joint economic and trade commission scheduled for next week, which will be a meeting between officials from the two countries to try and start to discuss and work out those issues and see if there can be some sort of way to lift those tariffs for producers. So certainly some welcome and promising news for producers who say that in recent days, since that tariff was imposed this past Thursday on canola seed, they've essentially lost access to their second largest foreign buyer of canola products. So it's been a difficult stretch for producers. They're looking for some relief, some action from the federal government. And like you pointed out there, we also heard from the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe, saying that he's ready to go to China and he's planning to make a trip there in the coming weeks. We don't know exactly when that will be or what that might entail when it comes to meetings with officials in China, but have a listen to what the Premier had to say on his focus for that trip.
But we have amended that to some degree so that we can be in China in the next number of weeks and potentially back before the end of the calendar year, all in an effort of advancing that Canada-China trade relations specific to canola, which is the largest export that we have from this province, and I dare say the largest exports that we have from Canada into China.
The Premier went on to say that his focus, his goal with this trip to China is to advocate for producers in Saskatchewan and to ultimately lay some of the diplomatic groundwork for meetings between the Prime Minister of Canada and the leader of China as well. So going to kind of lay some of that initial groundwork, try and do some relationship building before meetings can take place involving the leaders of the two countries. We also heard as well from the representatives from the federal government talking about the need to eventually lay out some programs, some supports for producers that are impacted by this, especially if these tariffs do drag on. And we also heard as well about the need for diversification. The parliamentary secretary to the Prime Minister spoke about the need to engage with other partners and other nations in Asia and other parts of the world to try and see where else Canadian canola could be sold.
And Alexander, what sort of pressure is the government under to get this resolved quickly?
Well, some substantial pressure, Hillary. Harvest is just a few weeks away, and prices have really taken a tumble since that tariff went into effect this past Thursday. So producers are hoping to see some meaningful and concrete action from the federal government to try and get those tariffs lifted. Have a listen to what the parliamentary secretary to the Prime Minister had to say on the impact.
This is a continuing conversation. I think industry and this provincial government here in Saskatchewan would be able to say that this is a nuanced situation. It is fluid. Price points have gone up and down over the last number of days as the market is trying to figure out what may happen, and there's still a lot of uncertainty.
As you heard, there are lots of uncertainty. The prices for canola have been very volatile. We've been hearing from producers in some cases with those fluctuating prices. They're looking at losing potentially tens of thousands of dollars in value in their canola crops if things stay the way they are. So in the coming weeks, there's going to be some mounting pressure, depending on how things unfold, to find a resolution here or offer some financial support to producers, because as this harvest approaches, at a certain point, the canola is going to have to come out of the fields and it'll be sold for whatever price producers can get. Hillary?
Alexander, thank you for all of this. The CBC's Alexander Silberman in Regina.